Hello and welcome to phase two of Decode Your Cycle. First of all, thank you so much for being here. Such a big hurdle sometimes is actually choosing to watch the thing that you have signed up for or take that step. So thank you for being here. In this phase, as we move through the cycle, pretty much looking at it, to be honest, through the lens of your body, mind, and spirit. We today are going to be looking through more the angle of what we would say is like the spirit is like the energy body and the emotions. So, in all aspects of life, I personally would say this part is very overlooked, and that's the energy body, the things that are impacting, I guess, the things that we can't see. Like when we have um, a broken arm, for example, it's very easy to actually see. You can x-ray, you can see that we have a broken arm. If something is affecting our energy, unless it's having a ultimate physical response and outcome, it's not something that is often taken so seriously or understood unless you're more that way inclined, more energetic and more intuitive, which often women are and do lean towards being a little bit more intuitive and more energy focused rather than focused super on logic and the things that you can see in front of you. So we're going to be talking about how subtle energies, big energies can really affect your cycle, your emotions, and pretty much your entire life. And something I really just want to reiterate that I said in the first call, and I will continue to say, is we're using the cycle almost as like a compass. So to me, when there are like huge symptoms showing up in the cycle, it's indicative of, okay, what is happening on a deeper layer here inside of my body. What I want to really get through is us to stop doing this internal gaslighting and sort of just pushing it aside and saying it's part of the experience of being a woman. However, some aspects of it are the experience of being a woman, but it's a really beautiful thing as we drop into that more slower and energetic and intuitive state. So, like I mentioned in the other call, I really want you to just approach the session with an open heart, a receptive mind. It's completely normal if you feel certain things rising up. Remember that this is a safe space. If you feel yourself feeling overwhelmed at any point, take a break, step away, do whatever you need to do to prioritize your nervous system regulation. This is about conscious awareness. Take what resonates and leave what doesn't. Having said that, try to really open your mind to taking on board, even if you slightly disagree. What I'm teaching today or what I'm talking about today isn't so disagreeable, but I usually always have to give that disclaimer inside of my work because sometimes it can be slightly more triggering, but today is not too much. So, in our last session, we talked about the shadow self, the unconscious parts of ourselves that hold valuable information. And today we're building on that and looking at energy. Energy alignment is the practice of harmonizing your energetic body and making sure that your vital life force flows freely and optimally. So, just as your physical body has systems, your energetic body does too, things that influence your thoughts, emotions, and your physical well-being. So if you think of your body as almost like a circuit board, and when your energy flows smoothly, everything works in harmony. But when there are blocks and stagnation, often due to unaddressed emotions, stress, or even, and this is where things start to link together, unintegrated shadows, this can cause disruption. So you probably understand and know this concept anyway, but when things are happening on a more sort of energetical level, nothing is separate, we're not like energy, body, mind. It is all interlooped and all works together. So when something is affecting you and you're in a circuit board on an energetic level, that also can impact your hormones and your your hormonal circuit board on that sort of level too. And this obviously isn't something which is investigated very often in the medical field, albeit the menstrual cycle is not very researched anyway, outside of my slightly more far out views. But we are not just physical beings; we are energetic beings, and a key to really understanding this is a key part to holistic healing. So, my view on energy alignment, energy and intuition and such things have always been my field, if you want. It's my area of joy. It is the thing that feels most natural and organic to me to speak about. It is, I am very deeply energetic being. And over the years, I've just slightly adjusted the way in which I approach that from a personal level and also within my work. But it is ultimately the driving force. So ultimately, just as our hormones ebb and flow, so does our energetic landscape throughout the month. And when our emotional energy is stagnant or out of alignment, it can directly contribute to the intensity of PMS symptoms and overall feelings of well being, as well as other things that you might experience in the bleeding phase of your cycle, or right down to other stuff such as not getting your bleed, having a late bleed, having pain, different things like that. Tiredness in particular is probably the main thing that I would want to hone in on the energetic side of things, is that deep feeling of fatigue, which isn't always from, doing too much. It's more about your energetic output, which I know are kind of the same thing, but they're also kind of not. So in the luteal phase, we talked about how it often brings our shadows to the surface because hormonal shifts create a unique window into this different part of us, into this different psychological landscape. And from an energetic perspective, this is also a time when any stagnant and emotional energy or unresolved emotional debt demands attention. So it can start to come more to the surface. The veil becomes thinner as we move to this other side of the cycle. It's a very natural thing that happens, almost like a death and rebirth sort of cycle. I'm very conscious that I haven't in this workshop spoken about like the different phases of the cycle and things like that. Inside of my membership, there is going to be a course explaining those things. So if you're interested in that or learning anything further, please just fire me over a message or if something is coming up for you personally. Um, so when we suppress things, the energy doesn't just disappear. It gets stored inside of our energetic body. When things get stored inside of our energetic body, they then need to become tangible. So, to become tangible, if you imagine energy in order to be released, needs to become tangible. So, tangible is something that we can touch. So, in order for it to become tangible, this is where things sometimes then get released in the form of like tears, shouting, different things. If we don't release them in that way, they will become tangible in a different way inside of the body and start to cause disruption inside of the way in which the body is working. So, um, this latter phase, you will just notice not just these things. I don't want this to all be about things that you're ignoring and things that you're blocking because it's not that. But this latter phase is also really a time when your intuition is calling. That's the best way that I would explain it. Your intuition is calling. And whilst I don't think that you need to like run off to the forest and spend the last 2 weeks of your cycle just hugging trees. I do believe there's an element of connecting to that part of yourself more organically. And when we reject that in that latter phase of the cycle, um, I feel something just starts to happen inside of the body where it's crying out for that moving into that gear shift. That's the best way I would explain it. It's like a gear shift into a different sort of energy, which is more, I guess, I don't like to use these terms anymore, but what we would call a slightly more feminine energy, a slightly softer energy, as a slowing down. But when I say a slowing down, this doesn't mean that you have to like give up on everything in your life. It's a gear shift. You're still driving, you're still going to wherever you're headed, but you've just shifted the gear slightly. Maybe you're just slowing down a little bit more, checking out the scenery a little bit more, taking some deeper breaths, paying attention to signals from your intuition, from your dreams. Your dreams in the luteal phase of your cycle will be wild if you have that very regular cycle going on. So sometimes the symptoms you experience are signals from your energetic body pointing to areas where you might be holding on to old emotions, need to set boundaries, or require deeper energetic cleansing. So, this is why I often say as well, this latter half of the cycle, people tend to sort of sabotage and slump and maybe scroll a little bit more, maybe eat foods that they wouldn't usually eat, maybe like spend a little bit more time like binging out watching the television. And like I've said this a million times before, whilst I don't think I would never like to categorize things as like that's bad, that's wrong, this is good, this is what you should be doing. And I don't want you to get caught up in that thing of like, oh my God, I shouldn't do X thing. But it's exploring and looking at like noticing when all of a sudden you suddenly do start to reach for those cookies a little bit more, when you do start to scroll on your phone a little bit more, when um, you're distracting yourself away from things that might be arising, and basically just putting it down to, oh, it's my hormones. And I know I've said this a lot of times, like it is your hormones, yeah, but there's also something much deeper at play. Our bodies are so far beyond intelligent that I really don't think we can even comprehend um, what is happening. However, it being the intuitive being that you are, you definitely will be able to plug into more things and just get a feel for what is coming up inside of your body. So, energetic blocks that can have an impact on your cycle. Um, Grief, sadness can manifest as low energy, persistent sadness, unexpressed losses, disappointment, or a general feeling of being unsupported. Energetically, this can feel like almost like a dull ache, like a heavy cloak that is hard to shake off. Suppressed anger, such a huge part of PMS. When it isn't expressed constructively, it can become trapped, leading to like an agitative or explosive energy. If it doesn't become explosive, it can lead maybe to like more of an anxiety and intense irritability. Sharp words, a feeling of internal pressure. We have this um, ongoing joke, obviously, as women, like about like breathing being annoying and like when your partner is doing certain things. And again, there is a hormonal aspect to that. There absolutely is. Like you are, the way the hormones change, you do become more sensitive to sound, to things, which again, super insightful into your intuition and leaning more into the energetic body. So again, I'm not going to say that like it's wrong to get like a little bit more annoyed, feel slightly more irritable, but when you're becoming like incredibly snappy, like you cannot handle things, it's usually indicative of something a little bit deeper going on. Like you're probably extremely dysregulated if you can't cope with the sound of breathing, different things. And rather than sort of making a joke about it, it's about like really looking at like why is this happening for me? Do I need a bit more space? Well, I will give you the answer, to what is there for most of these things is that most of the time you need just a little bit more space to yourself. And that doesn't mean that you have to go and do a Shirley Valentine, but like just spending half an hour on your own in the morning doing some breath work can really, really help during this phase of your cycle. Um, People pleasing and like boundary issues. So absorbing other people's emotions. Complicated one, and I'm not really going to get into it so much today. We had like a few years ago, I think, like the era of the empath. Um, I think there's something much deeper at play, like with absorbing other people's um, emotions on a shadow work level. But if you are not giving that time to yourself and you're doing a lot of outgiving, you're not putting any boundaries in place. Funny enough, just before this call, I was just writing down because I keep like overcommitting and I have been feeling a little bit more tired recently. Um, and I was just looking and trying to pinpoint why that's the way in which I work. I do like a little life audit. And one of the things was kind of like overcommitting, being around people a lot and not really intentionally taking that time for myself to be, spend that time on my own, which I've made sure that I put in this week and cancelled certain things as well. So it can just be that simple. Also, a disconnection from your intuition. So when you are in your head, externalizing your power, You can become very disconnected from your inner wisdom, which is your energetic guidance system. Often, what we believe to be the intuition is not the intuition. People get wrapped up in the ego versus the intuition, which can be a super complicated process and journey. Um, but energetically, it can feel like you're just not in flow, like you're just not in flow with life. You're disconnected. Something just feels off in your heart. Something just feels a little bit off, and that will become louder in the PMS phase. Energy alignment is not about um, blaming everybody else and everything else when it comes to energy. It's like everything inside of the work that I do. It's all about like taking that level of self responsibility. And when we take self responsibility, that is not self blame. Can't reiterate that enough. It's not self blame, but it is about, evaluating and looking at where might I not be looking after my energy fully and properly, and you want to look at all the different areas there in your life, like what is energy giving and what is energy depleting. And in life, sometimes things are going to be energy depleting. It is what it is. I have to do X amount of admin work inside of my business, and it's not the most energy giving part of my business. However, I pay attention to what I do before that and after that, the amount of time that I'm doing that particular thing, taking myself off for a walk, doing a little bit of breath work um, after I've done it in order to manage and regulate my energy. Paying attention to different foods. Again, not every single thing that you eat is going to make you feel elated. Sometimes you're going to eat those things, but it's about really paying attention to that. Is this thing giving more to my energy or is it further depleting my energy? Um, so, what are the consequences of not paying attention to your energetic self? Well, the ultimate thing that brought you here, unresolved emotional energy coming up as mood swings, discomfort, fatigue during your luteal phase and menstrual phase, your PMS symptoms. Chronic fatigue and burnout, energetic blockages really drain your life force, leaving you perpetually exhausted even after rest. A very common thing that I see a lot. Emotional volatility, so unaddressed emotional debt can lead to unpredictable mood swings, intense reactions, and a feeling of being at the mercy of your emotions. Physical manifestations, so long term energetic imbalance, can contribute to symptoms like headaches, digestive issues, hormonal imbalances, muscle tension, because your body holds on to these things. Difficulty setting boundaries. So, if your energetic field is weak or permeable, you will find it hard to say no, leading to overcommitment and resentment. And just feeling disconnected and unfulfilled. So when your energy is out, it can lead to a sense of like emptiness, a lack of joy, and a feeling of not living authentically, even if you're outwardly successful. So from here, we are going to do a little mini sort of mini meditation, a little bit of an energy clearing, and just check in with what is your body trying to tell you on a more energetic level. I'm just going to give you a moment because I'm absolutely desperate for a bottle of water. So you can lie down for this if you want to, or just stay in your seated position. Gently close down your eyes. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders relax. Ground yourself into this moment. And gently bring awareness to where you are in your menstrual cycle. Is it your bleeding phase? Are you just coming out of the bleeding phase? Is it around ovulation? Or are you actually in prime time of the luteal phase of your cycle? And don't worry if you don't know, completely fine and very, very normal. And with a gentle curiosity, just mentally scan your body from head to toe. A little check in. How are you feeling? Notice any areas where you feel tightness, heaviness, tingling, or a lack of sensation. Without judgment, simply acknowledge what you find. For reference as well, might sound a little strange unless you're into this sort of thing, but I'm feeling quite a lot of soreness in my throat and tonsils. It's not mine. Stuffiness around like the nose. Particularly those two at the moment. I don't know if anybody can claim those. Nobody's here alive, so I trust that it's right for you if it is you. And then without judgment, just acknowledge what you find. For example, I notice a tightness in my chest. I feel a sense of dullness in my abdomen. I feel a tightness in my throat. And just drop all your awareness into that particular area of your body. And just ask in your head, what are you trying to tell me? What do you need to release or shift? Don't force an answer. Just be open to what arises. And allow gentle light breath to flow into that area. And based on what you've heard or felt, what is one tiny energetic action you can take? Maybe consciously releasing a sigh. Could be simply acknowledging what's there. Spending 10 minutes in nature, going for a walk. And just taking a couple more deep breaths into the body. All that energy talk is making me yawn. Quite normal to yawn. It's like a release when you're tapping more into the energy body. And when you're ready to do so, blink your eyes open. So, what I just really wanted to bring to you today is being aware of the how the different energetic experiences can have an impact on our cycle. And you are at core an energetic being. And just whilst you don't have to go and live in the mountains or run up to the jungle, I've tried them. It is important just to acknowledge that part of yourself and know that that could be the missing piece. What I really want you to take away from this whole workshop of where we're looking at through the mind of like unconscious patterns, energy body, and the physical body is there's many different contributing factors to what could be impacting your cycle. And whilst that can feel defeating sometimes, it also helps to just take that defeating, it shouldn't, not it shouldn't. I don't want that to feel defeating. I feel that we have this mindset sometimes of oh, it's just another thing to do and it's another thing to think about, and I wish I just knew the answer. But really, when it comes to your experience, especially as a woman, that sense of like self-reflection and getting into like understanding like what is really going on and coming up for me um right now, but not getting lost in that either. It's like, very much a lot of my work is centered around, okay, what is coming up for you and what is something that we can take as a solution and implement almost immediately, something that we can do a 1% change so that we can start to shift that. I don't want you to be like, I've got all this energy in my heart and then that's it. And, you just keep carrying that around forever. It's like, I want you to see what you've seen and then process that thing. In our final session, we'll be bringing it all together by talking about the physical body, nutrition, and movement. I wanted to leave this to last for numerous reasons because what I found is we often jump to, I know for a fact that if I was to sell a pill that would end PMS, people would jump to that like almost instantly, and food has that sort of way. Um, like as a solution sometimes, the food and the nutrition, but also I wanted to explore and be able to look at like even if your nutrition was completely on point, what could actually be contributing outside of that? And also if your nutrition is not on point and you're struggling to get it on point, could that be because of something going on in your energy body or in your shadow self that is causing the way in which you eat? So we're going to be talking about really just the baseline of nutrition and movement. I'm probably not going to say, I would say that actually. But I hope that you feel a deep connection to your energetic self. As I mentioned in the first one, please, please, please do send me your feedback. I love to hear it. And I will see you in the next video.